everyone. Our topic is on Hmong industry leaders.
Today, we've seen Hmong people across various industries throughout the United States, starting with Brenda Song, an actress who's won numerous awards. In 2009, Kao Kalia Yang's book, The Late Homecomer, became the first book to win two categories in the history of the Minnesota Book Awards. Sunisa Lee is a Hmong American gymnast. In 2019, she became the first Hmong American Olympian to take home gold for the U.S. team. And finally, in 2026, Kali Her became not just the first Hmong mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota, but was also the first Asian American and first woman to enter the position.
So how did this start? In 1959, the United States entered Southeast Asia to suppress the spread of communism. As part of their operation, Hmong civilians living in the surrounding areas of Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam were recruited as agents to gather intelligence and to fight for the United States. This would become known as the Secret War. In return, the Hmong were promised protection by the United States government.
However, when the war finally ended in 1973, the U.S. left, abandoning the Hmong to fend for themselves. Fearing for their lives, the Hmong people fled to their homes for refugee camps in Thailand, as they became targets of the remaining communist forces who retaliated against them for helping the United States. This included crossing the Mekong River, the third largest river in Asia. By 1975, over 44,000 Hmong had entered Thailand for safety.
While living in refugee camps, the Hmong received humanitarian groups that helped them gain access to medical supplies, housing, and food. However, Thailand would not continue taking Hmong refugees forever and even began to discourage them from entering the country. They made it known from the beginning that their help was only temporary. In 1975, officials in Thailand began to send Hmong refugees away to countries that would finally accept them. Finally, the passing of Hmong refugees in 1980 also allowed Hmong refugees to resettle in the United States. By the mid-1990s, over 100,000 Hmong refugees were living in the United States, and by 2023, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that the Hmong population has risen to 360,000.
So who are the Hmong people? Hmong, which translates to free people, is an ethnic group that is believed to have originated in China some 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Before the Secret War, the Hmong were on the run from persecution even in those times, migrating into the mountains and jungles for safety as far back as the 3rd century. For a few hundred years, the Hmong found some peace in a kingdom they built for themselves before that too was destroyed by the Chinese in the 6th century. Due to generations of discrimination and war, the Hmong people today are scattered across China, Southeast Asia, the Americas, Europe, and Australia. Known to be adept farmers and agriculturists, the Hmong people initially made their living off the land. However, since arriving in the United States, they have branched into other industries and markets for better financial opportunities, such as nursing, engineering, and education, with some even fortunate enough to open their own businesses.
In the Central Valley, a number of Hmong-owned grocery stores were established to provide fresh farm ingredients to the Hmong community. Hmong people have also entered social work to provide translation services.
These achievements show that the Hmong people have come far since their days of persecution and abandonment. They've now become self-sufficient and successful in their own terms. The Hmong New Year in Fresno, California is one of the biggest Hmong celebrations in the entire United States, where Hmong merchants from all over the United States gather at the Fresno Fairgrounds to sell goods, foods, and fashion.
Kelly Her, who lives in the Central Valley, runs a bakery business in her home.
My name is Kelly Her, Elyher. My business is called My Sweet Adventures. My Sweet Adventures, My is actually my mom's name, her first name. And then Sweet Adventure is just kind of like me experimenting with different baked items. And then the Sweet Adventure is also S.A. So that is my husband's name is Sa, S.A. So it's my mom's name and my husband's name kind of together. So that's how we came up with My Sweet Adventures. I have an LLC and you have to have a business license and all that stuff. I started off with just cupcakes, and then with more experience, I started doing cakes, and then I added cookies, and I'm looking to add more baked items once I get back, because I am on quote unquote maternity leave right now, since I just had my baby. I started my business, oh my gosh, I don't even remember what year. I think it's probably been 7, 8 years now. It's been about 7 or 8 years. And the reason why I started baking was because I couldn't find any cakes and cupcakes that were not too sweet. You know, Asians love non-sweet items. Yeah, and then I just constantly post on Facebook. When you first start a business, I do see a lot of people posting it and pricing it at a very low price just to get customers to try your product. My first set of cupcakes, 12 cupcakes, I sold for $12, and currently I'm selling a dozen cupcakes for $36. So you can see the difference, and of course with inflation, you know, ingredient prices going up and everything like that. So, and that's how I started too. So I would say, just not to Hmong people, but to anyone that's wanting to open a business, I think you just have to be consistent and don't give up. If it's something that you're passionate about, then keep trying. Like I said, when I first started, you know, I did not have a lot of customers, but it takes time. And if you constantly put yourself out there, advertise, believe in what you do have to work hard. When I first started, I actually did stay up until like 3 or 4 in the morning, completing orders and all that stuff, because I was taking too many orders, and I was also working full time. So it was hard for me to balance the two. And then eventually I quit my full-time job to bake full-time. And then by the time I quit, I had already established my customers. So I had enough customers to keep myself busy. And I also increased my prices, which meant that I didn't have to take as many orders as what I was doing when I was pricing it much lower. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest thing, is just to be consistent. And if it's something that you enjoy doing, then go for it. Sometimes you don't get support from the people that you think you're gonna get support from, but it's okay. There's plenty of people out there that is willing to support your business, even if it's not your family. That's not the case for me. My family supports me 100%, 1,000% actually. I'm very fortunate to have my family supporting me, even when I do pop-ups for holidays. I remember when I was working full-time and baking full-time, my nieces and nephews, they would come over and help me prep and everything like that. And that you can't try and do everything yourself. That's what happens when you run a small business. You depend a lot on family to help you and support you. I never thought that I would end up with a home bakery. I graduated from Fresno State and worked in the field for about, I think, 10, 15 years before I started dabbling into baking. So, yeah.
Despite a complicated and traumatic history, the Hmong people have proven that they have the resilience and tenacity to overcome all manner of challenges. After facing persecution from the Chinese, the communists, and after being abandoned by the US government, the Hmong people went from being survivors of a niche group to a thriving community. Now, they have their hands in all manner of industries and are becoming more recognizable in popular culture through their achievements.